The sky above Port Exos was gray, thick with dust that never seemed to settle. Buildings leaned against each other like broken teeth, their surfaces coated in a layer of grime that seeped into everything: air, food, even thoughts. Aidan Mercer trudged through the narrow streets, each step heavy from another long day in the mines. His jumpsuit, once mustard-colored, was now streaked with sweat and dirt. The metal knee pads clanged against his legs as he moved, a constant reminder of the labor that never truly ended. In his hand, he carried the remains of his dinner, a container of protein stew that barely tasted like anything but salt and cardboard. He had grown used to it. Food was food, and nothing went to waste. His broad shoulders hunched under the weight of fatigue, and he ran a calloused hand through his dark hair, brushing the grit from his fingers. Ahead, a dented metal bowl sat on the corner of a narrow alley. This was the community feeder, a place where colonists sometimes left scraps for stray animals that had adapted to life on the dusty planet. Aidan always felt a strange connection to the strays. They survived here just like him, small, overlooked, yet persistent. Better than throwing it away, he muttered to himself, scraping the cold stew into the bowl. The plop echoed in the empty alley, almost loud enough to startle him. He turned to continue walking back to his quarters, but then he heard a soft shuffle, almost like whispering footsteps. He froze. One hand went to the utility knife at his belt, while his eyes scanned the shadows. 3 small figures crouched near the feeder bowl. Their skin was a bright, unnatural blue, glowing faintly in the gray light of Port Exos. Their hair was white, matted and dirty, falling in tangled strands around their shoulders. Large, wide eyes stared at him, reflecting hunger that went far beyond food. Aidan's heart thudded in his chest. They were small, maybe the equivalent of children, but their presence sent a ripple of unease through him. Not human. Definitely not human. "Hey," he said softly, lowering his knife and crouching to seem less threatening. "You don't need to eat that." The smallest of the 3 flinched, pressing herself back against the wall. The tallest stepped forward, a protective stance that somehow made her seem older, more aware than her years. "We?" "Not steal," she said in broken standard, her voice thin and hesitant. "Just hungry." Aidan felt a twist in his chest. He had faced danger before, had labored under conditions meant to crush men's spirits, but seeing children, or at least something like children eating from a metal feeder, meant for animals. It crossed a line. "You're not in trouble," he assured them. "But that food isn't good enough for you." The 3 exchanged glances, silent communication passing between them. Finally, the tallest spoke. "No parents. Just us." Aidan ran a hand over his stubble, weighing his options. He wasn't a social worker. He wasn't trained for this. But he couldn't just walk away. "I'm Aidan," he said, offering a small, gentle smile. "What are your names?" The tallest hesitated, then said, "Neri. These are Elia and C." She pointed to the middle and smallest girls. "All right, Neri, C, Elia. Let's get you some proper food. And maybe some clean clothes." The mention of food made their eyes widen, but suspicion flickered quickly after. Neri tilted her head, large eyes studying him. "Why help? What you want?" A fair question, Aidan thought. In a place like Port Exos, nothing came without cost. "Because you're kids," he said simply. "Kids shouldn't eat from animal bowls." No strings attached. Slowly, carefully, the girls moved closer. Aidan kept them near him as they walked, aware of the eyes that might be watching from the grimy windows above. The streets were full of danger criminals, thieves, and worse. But for now, nothing stirred. They arrived at a small shop tucked between a pawnbroker and a dubious medical clinic. A sign flickered above the entrance. Stellar Threads. Inside, the space was clean, warm. and organized a stark contrast to the streets outside. A woman appeared from behind a curtain. Her skin was the same blue as the girl's, and her long purple hair caught the light as she moved gracefully toward them. "Can I help you?" she asked, cautious yet curious. "These girls need clothes." "And maybe a bath," Aiden said, feeling his own dirtiness keenly in the clean shop. The woman's violet eyes softened as she knelt in front of the girls. They responded with excited chatter in their own language, musical clicks and soft vowels. She straightened and looked at Aiden. "You found them eating from an animal feeder and brought them here?" "Why?" "Because they were hungry." "That's all," Aiden said simply, shrugging. A small smile appeared on the woman's lips, her gaze lingering on him. "Very well," she said. "Let's get them cleaned and dressed." As she led the girls to the back, Aiden stayed near the front, feeling a strange mix of relief and tension. The alleyway encounter had changed everything. 3 starving alien girls, lost and vulnerable, were now under his care. And he had no idea the danger and adventure that lay ahead. Somewhere in the shadows of Port Exos, eyes might be watching. Plans might be forming. And Aiden Mercer, miner of little importance, had just stumbled into a story far bigger than he could imagine. The next morning came slow and gray, the kind of morning that made Port Exos look even more lifeless. The faint glow of the twin suns barely reached the lower streets. Metal dust hung in the air like fog, settling on roofs and faces alike. Inside Stellar Threads, the small shop was quiet. Aiden sat on a bench near the counter, staring at the steam rising from a mug of synthetic coffee. The smell didn't comfort him. It reminded him too much of the mines. Behind a curtain, he could hear giggling. Real, genuine laughter. The kind he hadn't heard in a long time. Lena, the shop owner, appeared carrying a pile of folded clothes. Her blue skin shimmered faintly under the lights, and her expression was a mix of curiosity and unease. "They're clean now," she said softly. "And hungry." Aiden nodded. "They deserve a good meal." The curtain shifted. 3 small figures stepped out: Neri, Elia, and C. Their faces were washed clean, showing features that were surprisingly delicate. Neri's white hair fell neatly around her shoulders, and her wide silver eyes scanned the room like she was still ready to run. Elia clung to her hand while little T hid partly behind her. Aiden smiled gently. "See? Much better." Neri didn't smile back. Her eyes still held suspicion. "You no hurt?" she asked quietly. "Never," Aiden said. "You're safe here?" Lena watched their interaction carefully. "They trust you," she murmured. "That's rare for." "They're kind." Aiden frowned. "They're kind?" The woman hesitated. "They're Dalari. A rare species. I haven't seen one in years. They don't come here unless something terrible happened." He glanced back at the girls. "They said they had no parents." Lena nodded slowly. "That's possible. The Dalari homeworld was attacked last year. Many were taken. Some sold." Aiden's stomach turned. "Sold? You mean as slaves?" "Yes," Lena whispered. "Especially children. The Dalari are valuable to the wrong people." He clenched his fists. The idea of anyone treating those kids like property made his blood boil. He looked again at the girls, their fragile frames, their weary eyes. He couldn't let that happen. "Then I'll make sure they're safe," Aiden said firmly. Neri's gaze flickered to him. She understood more than he thought. "You help. Why?" she asked again. He sighed. "Because someone has to." The girls ate in silence at the small table in the back of the shop. They devoured the warm bread and soup Lena provided, as if afraid it might vanish. Every few seconds, Neri looked toward the window, scanning the streets beyond. Aiden noticed. "You expecting someone?" Neri shook her head, but didn't speak. Her silence was louder than words. After a few minutes, Lena came closer. "You can't stay here long," she whispered. "People will notice. Port Exos isn't kind to strangers, especially aliens." "I'll find a place," Aiden said. "I've got a small room near the docks." "That's dangerous," Lena warned. "If anyone learns what they are, I'll keep them hidden," he interrupted. His tone left no room for argument. The curtain rustled again as Elia tugged on Aiden's sleeve. Her voice was soft and trembling. "We no go outside? Bad men come?" Aiden crouched to meet her eyes. "Not while I'm here. No bad men will touch you." Elia nodded and surprised him by hugging his arm tightly. For a brief moment, Aiden froze. Then he returned the gesture gently. The smallest one, C, followed, wrapping both arms around his knee. Lena watched the scene quietly, a faint smile touching her lips. "You might not realize it," she said, "but they've already chosen you as their protector." "You might not realize it," she said, "but they've already chosen you as their protector." Aiden exhaled slowly. He didn't feel like a protector, just a tired miner with too many debts and not enough hope. But when he looked down at those small, trusting faces, he felt something stir inside him, something fierce, something human. He stood and looked out the shop's cracked window. A group of figures was walking down the street, cloaked in dark coats. Their movements were purposeful, scanning, searching. "Lena," he said quietly, "close the shutters." She followed his gaze and froze. "Bounty trackers," she whispered. "They've been seen here before." The laughter in the back of the shop faded. The girls sensed the change instantly. Neri stood, ready to defend the others, even with her small frame. Aiden motioned for silence. The shadows outside paused near the window. One of the cloaked figures leaned close, eyes scanning the inside. Aiden's pulse quickened. He stepped forward, pretending to be a simple customer. The figure moved on after a moment, disappearing down the alley. When it was finally safe, Lena exhaled. "They'll be back. You have to go before they start asking questions." Aiden nodded grimly. "I'll take them tonight." Neri looked up at him, fear in her eyes. "They find us again?" "Not if I can help it," Aiden said. "We move fast and quiet. Trust me." The girl hesitated, then finally nodded. "We trust." The words were small, almost a whisper, but they meant everything. As the dim light flickered over their faces, Aiden felt the weight of a promise settle on his shoulders. He didn't know who those bounty hunters were or what they wanted, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't abandon the girls now. Somewhere deep inside, something told him this was only the beginning. Night fell over Port Exos like a heavy blanket of smoke. The city's neon signs flickered weakly in the distance, fighting against the darkness that seemed to swallow everything whole. The streets were quieter now, but not safe. On Port Exos, night belonged to those who hunted. Aiden Mercer stood by the back door of Stellar Threads, adjusting the strap of his pack. Inside were ration bars, a canteen, and a small blaster he hadn't used in years. His pulse was steady, but his mind raced. He had no real plan, only one goal: get the girls away from the city before anyone found them. Lena moved quietly beside him, checking the alleys through the small window. "The trackers passed through the market again," she whispered. "They're asking about a human and 3 blue children." Aiden nodded grimly. "Then we need to move now." Neri stood near the door, clutching C's hand tightly, while Elia peeked nervously from behind her. They wore simple gray coats. Lena had provided enough to cover their strange skin and white hair. In the dim light, they almost looked human. Almost. Aiden crouched to meet their eyes. "Listen to me carefully," he said. "We'll move through the old service tunnels. No talking, no lights. You stay close to me the whole time, understand? Neri nodded. Her expression was serious, her silver eyes watching him closely. We trust, she said softly. Those words hit deeper than Aiden expected. Trust. In a place like this, trust could get you killed. But it also meant everything. Lina pressed a small data chip into Aiden's hand. This has old transport codes for the spaceport. If you can reach Dock 7, there's a cargo freighter leaving before sunrise. Tell them you're delivering maintenance parts. Aiden raised a brow. And they'll just believe me? Lina smiled faintly. You always were a good liar. He huffed a quiet laugh. Guess I'm about to prove it. The group slipped out into the back alley. The air was cold and heavy with dust. Aiden led the way, keeping to the shadows, his boots silent on the cracked metal ground. The tunnels lay ahead dark, abandoned corridors that ran beneath the city like forgotten veins. They reached a rusted grate, half buried behind a pile of broken crates. Aiden knelt, pried it open, and motioned the girls through. One by one, they crawled inside. The tunnel smelled of oil and old machinery. Pipes lined the ceiling, dripping condensation that echoed like whispers. Once inside, the darkness closed around them. Only the faint glow of the girls' eyes lit the space ahead. Aiden followed behind, sealing the grate softly behind them. Stay close, he murmured. The tunnel twisted and narrowed. The air grew damp, filled with the low hum of power conduits. Occasionally, the ground trembled as transport ships rumbled above them. Every sound made Aiden tense, listening for footsteps or movement that didn't belong. After what felt like hours, they reached a wider chamber. A faint light flickered at the far end, a maintenance panel still working after decades of neglect. Aiden checked his wrist pad. They were beneath the Eastern District. Dock 7 wasn't far now. Then came the noise. A metallic clank echoed through the tunnel, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps. Aiden froze. His heart thudded hard in his chest. Neri's voice was a whisper. Someone follow? Aiden pressed a finger to his lips and motioned them behind an old machinery stack. The girls huddled close, trembling. The sound drew closer, a steady rhythm. Boots on metal. Whoever it was, they weren't trying to hide. Aiden drew his blaster quietly, aiming it toward the tunnel's curve. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a low, distorted voice echoed. You can't hide forever, human. Aiden's stomach tightened. The voice came from a comm amplifier, someone using tech to echo through the tunnels. Neri clutched his sleeve. They know us. He didn't answer. Instead, he pointed toward a smaller vent shaft to their right. There, he whispered. Go. Crawl until it splits, then wait for me. Neri hesitated, her eyes wide with fear. But you, I'll be right behind you, he promised. One by one, the girls slipped into the vent. When C disappeared last, Aiden turned back toward the darkness. His pulse hammered in his ears. He didn't see the attacker, but he could feel the presence close, patient. Hunting. A soft mechanical hum filled the tunnel, followed by the flicker of a red, targeting laser sweeping across the walls. Aiden fired first. The bolt of blue plasma struck the tunnel wall, lighting up the space. A shadowy figure ducked back behind a corner, returning fire. Sparks exploded, filling the air with smoke and static. Aiden fired again, and then dove into the vent, sealing the hatch behind him. Blaster fire echoed for several seconds, then silence. He crawled fast through the narrow passage, sweat dripping down his neck. Finally, he reached the split and found the girls' waiting eyes wide, breaths trembling. You okay? He asked, his voice low but calm. Neri nodded quickly, though fear trembled in her voice. Bad men close. Not for long, he said. Let's move. They followed the vent until it opened into a cargo bay filled with half-loaded containers. Faint lights blinked overhead, and the distant roar of engines echoed from the port. They had made it. Dock 7 was only a few hundred meters away. Aiden glanced around, scanning for movement. "Almost there," he whispered. "Stay quiet." He didn't know that above them, hidden among the shadows of the cargo cranes, a tracker activated a small beacon and whispered into his comm. Target confirmed. 3 Dalari children. And a human. The cargo bay smelled of oil, rust, and the faint tang of metal that had been heated in the sun. Aiden crouched behind a stack of containers, peering through the slats at the freighter waiting at Dock 7. The hum of engines vibrated through the ground, echoing like a heartbeat. Time was running out. Neri, Elia, and C huddled close to him, eyes wide and faces pale in the dim light. They had been through enough to know fear intimately. Yet, despite their small forms, there was a quiet strength in them, a will to survive that Aiden couldn't help but admire. "Stay close," he whispered. "We'll get on that ship, and we're leaving Port Exos forever." The girls nodded silently. Neri's silver eyes flicked toward him. "Why you help? Not ask money?" Aiden shook his head. "Because you're kids. And kids shouldn't eat from animal bowls. Nothing else matters." For a moment, silence hung between them, filled only by the drone of the freighter. Then Elia's voice broke it softly. We not ordinary kids." Aiden froze. "What do you mean?" Neri glanced at her sisters before speaking. We princesses. Lost. House Valyrian." The words hit him like a punch to the chest. Princesses? Lost royalty? Suddenly, the pieces clicked the children's strange markings, their refined behavior even in hardship, the cautious way they spoke. House Valyrian. Aiden whispered, his mind racing. He had heard stories of the Azuran aristocracy, wealthy, powerful, untouchable. And now 3 of them were crouched behind shipping crates, hiding from unknown hunters. "Yes," Neri said, her voice barely audible. "Our home? Destroyed. Bad men. Killed family. We run." Aiden's jaw tightened. Rage simmered beneath his exhaustion. He had faced tough days in the mines, but this was different. This was injustice. He touched Neri's shoulder gently. "I promise I'll get you out. No one will hurt you on my watch." Elia peeked up, eyes shining. "But enemies?" Aiden nodded. "Close. That's why we move carefully." He motioned toward the freighter. "We'll climb up through the crane. It's risky, but it's the fastest way aboard." The girls exchanged nervous glances, but Neri stepped forward, determination in her stance. "We go. No choice." Aiden led them quietly across the open cargo yard, heaping to the shadows. The freighter loomed above, a steel giant with its engines thrumming. Every step brought them closer, but also closer to discovery. Suddenly, a faint whistle pierced the night. A shadow moved along the dockside. Aiden froze, pressing the girls against the containers. A tall figure stepped into view, cloaked in darkness, a glowing tracker on their chest. Aiden's heart sank. They had been found. He whispered to the girls, "Run to the crane. Fast. I'll hold them off if I have to." Without hesitation, Neri led Elia and C across the yard, toward the massive crane towering over the freighter. Aiden stayed behind, ducking behind crates as the tracker advanced. He fired his blaster, the blue plasma cutting through the darkness. Sparks flew as it hit the metal ground near the tracker, who dove for cover. "Move!" He shouted. The girls reached the crane, climbing its skeletal frame with surprising agility. Neri looked back, eyes wide, giving a small nod to Aiden. He returned it, then ducked again as another figure appeared. Drawn by the light of the freighter, Aiden's mind raced. He had no reinforcements, no allies, here only instincts and determination. But as the children ascended, a small smile tugged at his lips. They were survivors, just like him, and he wouldn't let them down. On the crane, Neri reached the top first, pulling Elia and C along. The freighter's boarding ladder dangled just out of reach. They were so close. Neri extended her hand toward the ladder, but a shadow loomed below another hunter and anticipated their escape. C froze, terrified, and Elia gasped. But Neri's grip on her sisters tightened. "Hold on. Trust me," she said firmly down below. Aiden stepped into view, hands raised but determined. "You won't touch them," he shouted. The hunters hesitated, unsure. Aiden's posture, broad shoulders, and unwavering gaze projected something primal human courage that the Azarans didn't fully understand in that moment. Something shifted. The hunters stepped back, sensing they were dealing with more than just a human miner. Neri climbed the last few rungs and grabbed the ladder. "Now, Tsi, Elia, come." The sisters clung to the ladder, trembling, but Aiden's voice reached them. "Almost there. Keep going." Finally, all three were on the freighter deck, panting and wide-eyed. Neri turned and gave Aiden a grateful look. "You saved us?" Aiden smiled, exhaustion and relief mingling. "No one deserves to be hunted for who they are. Let's get out of here." Inside the freighter, Lena waited at the controls. "Quickly," she urged. "Engines online. They'll be after us soon." As the freighter lifted off, Port Exos shrinking beneath them, Aiden looked at the girls. Their story was far from over, but for now, they were safe. And for the first time in years, he felt like he was part of something bigger, something important. But the shadows that hunted House Valerian were not far behind. And the galaxy had only just begun to notice that 3 royal girls had survived, and a human had chosen to protect them. The freighter vibrated under Aiden's feet as it cut through the thin, smoky atmosphere of Port Exos. The lights of the mining settlement shrank into the distance, swallowed by the night. Neri, Elia, and C huddled together near the small viewport, their wide eyes reflecting the stars streaking past. "Do you think they'll follow?" C asked quietly, her small hands gripping the edge of the metal panel. Aiden glanced at them, his jaw tight. "Yes, and they won't stop until they find you. That's why we have to stay ahead, keep moving, keep hiding." Neri's silver eyes narrowed, determination flashing across her pale blue face. "We fight back?" she asked, a hint of steel in her voice. Aiden shook his head. "Not yet. First, we survive. Then we think about fighting." The freighter's engines roared louder, and Lena's hands danced across the controls. She had navigated countless freighters before, but never one carrying 3 royal fugitives and a human miner with no real combat experience. Yet her confidence never wavered. "We're clear for now," she said. But sensors just picked up 2 pursuit ships. They're fast military grade. They'll catch up if we don't maneuver carefully. Aiden's fists clenched. He had faced danger in the mines, but nothing like this. These weren't simple bandits or local thieves. They were trained hunters, likely equipped with weapons and tech far beyond anything he had seen. And they were after children. Elia shivered beside him. "I don't want to go back," she whispered. "You won't," Aiden assured her. "I promise." The freighter shifted sharply as Lena executed a sharp banking maneuver, dodging a barrage of tracking drones. Red streaks of energy sizzled past the hull, leaving glowing scorch marks in the air. Neri's eyes widened in fear, but she didn't panic. She had faced worse. She reminded herself running from the raid, losing her family, hiding in the dust of Port Exos. "We need a plan," Aiden said, pressing his forehead against the viewport. The pursuit ships glinted in the distance, fast and relentless. If we just run, they'll catch us. But if we use the asteroid field ahead, he pointed to a dense cluster of jagged rocks floating in orbit. They can't maneuver through that easily. We might stand a chance. Lena nodded, hands tightening on the controls. It's risky. The freighter isn't built for tight maneuvers. One wrong move, and we could lose all of us. Aiden took a deep breath. It's the only chance we have. We do it together. The freighter dove toward the asteroid field, engines flaring as it weaved between massive rocks. The pursuit ships fired, and bursts of blue energy splashed against the hull. Sparks flew across the console, but Lena's skill kept the freighter moving, slicing through gaps that seemed too small for even a human to fit. Neri clung to the railing, fear mixed with awe. Aiden, you're amazing, she said, her voice trembling. Aiden shook his head. Not amazing, desperate. He dodged a falling fragment of rock, feeling his muscles strain with every move. Elia and C followed Neri closely, their small bodies nimble as they ducked and clung to the freighter's walls. The pursuit ships weren't far behind. Their weapons were powerful, and Aiden knew it wouldn't take many hits to disable the freighter. He scanned the cockpit, searching for options. Double quotes Lena. Can we hide in the shadow of that giant asteroid? He asked, pointing to a massive rock drifting ahead. She nodded. Maybe, but it'll take precision. One mistake, and the gravity pull could slam us into the rock. Aiden exhaled sharply. We do it, hold on. The freighter swung toward the asteroid, engines straining. The pursuit ships followed, their sensors still locked on. Just as they were about to pass, Aiden activated the freighter's decoy drones. A dozen small, glowing spheres shot out, mimicking the freighter's heat signature. The hunters blinked, hesitating for a fraction of a second, just enough. The freighter slipped behind the massive asteroid, hidden in shadow. The pursuit ships zipped past, unable to immediately locate them. Inside, the girls let out collective breaths they hadn't realized they were holding. C's voice shook. We safe? For now, Aiden said, though he didn't sound fully convinced. He could feel the tension radiating from Lina as she maneuvered them further into the dense asteroid cluster. But they'll keep coming. We need to think of a longer-term plan. Neri stepped forward, a newfound determination in her voice. We survive together, and then we take our home back. Aiden glanced at her, impressed. The girl might be small, but she carried the spirit of a warrior. That's the right attitude, he said. But first, we survived tonight. As the freighter slipped deeper into the shadowed field of floating rocks, the trio of girls finally allowed themselves a small, tentative smile. For the first time since the raid, hope flickered in their eyes. But outside, the distant hum of pursuit ships reminded them that the galaxy was watching. House Valerian's lost princesses were alive, and that knowledge carried a deadly price. Aiden clenched his fists. He didn't know how many hunters were out there, or what they were capable of. But one thing was clear. No one would touch these girls. While he was around, the dangerous pursuit had begun, and the next move could change everything. The freighter drifted silently in the shadow of the massive asteroid. Outside, the stars blinked coldly, indifferent to the lives hidden below. Aiden, Lena, and the three girls huddled in the cockpit, their hearts still pounding from the narrow escape. Lena wiped sweat from her brow. We can't stay here long, she said. The hunters will keep looking. They have better sensors than we do. Eventually, they'll find us. Neri's silver eyes glinted with determination. Then we need allies. People who understand what we face. Aiden rubbed his jaw, exhausted but alert. Do you know anyone? On this planet or off? The girls exchanged glances. C, the smallest, whispered. There's someone who can help us. Aiden raised an eyebrow. Who? Elia stepped forward, her voice trembling. A royal guard. Survived the raid. Maybe. His name is Kale. He was supposed to protect us. The freighter hummed quietly as Lena adjusted the course. That's a long shot. Do you even know where to find him? She asked. Neri shook her head. Not exactly. But he will find us if we stay alive long enough. Aiden clenched his fists. Protecting 3 children was one thing. Protecting royal fugitives with hunters on their trail was another. And now, it wasn't just survival, it was war. Let's figure this out step by step, he said. First, we get out of Port Exo's airspace. Then we find Kale, or someone who can keep you safe. The girls nodded, silently agreeing. But before anyone could move, a sharp beep echoed from the control panel. Lena frowned. Sensors. Someone is approaching. And fast. Outside, the faint glow of the pursuit ships pierced the darkness. They had tracked the freighter through the asteroid field, relentless and precise. Red warning lights flashed on the console. Aiden's stomach sank. They found us. No, Lena corrected, her voice tense. They think we're another freighter. They don't know it's us yet. The freighter's engines roared as Lena executed evasive maneuvers, skimming past massive rocks with precision. The pursuit ships adjusted their course, calculating trajectories with deadly accuracy. Neri grabbed Aiden's arm. We can't keep running forever. What if they catch us? Aiden swallowed hard. Then we fight, and we make sure they regret ever coming after you. The freighter shook violently as one of the pursuit ships fired a burst of plasma. Sparks rained across the hull, and Elia yelped in fear. Tsi clutched her sister, eyes wide with terror. Aiden steadied himself, moving to shield the girls. Stay down, he shouted. Lena's hands danced over the controls, twisting and turning the ship like a dancer in zero gravity. Suddenly, a faint signal came through the freighter's com. It was faint, broken, but unmistakable, a human voice, urgent and commanding. Mercer. Do you read? This is Kale. Aiden froze. Kale? He whispered. The Royal Guard? Affirmative. Kale's voice crackled. I've been tracking your signal. I know who you have with you. You don't have much time. Rendezvous at Sector 9 Delta. I'll extract the girls. Stay on course, but don't engage. I repeat, do not engage. Aiden turned to the girls. That's him. He's real. And he knows you. Neri's eyes widened. Kale, he's alive? Yes, Aiden said. And he's coming for you. Lena's hands trembled slightly as she guided the freighter away from the pursuit ships. We don't have much time, she warned. They're gaining on us. You need a plan and fast. Aiden's mind raced. The freighter couldn't outrun the hunters forever, and they were no match in a fight. But Kale was a warrior, trained for this. If they could just hold on a little longer, hope was possible. The girls huddled together, fear mixed with anticipation. Will he save us? Tsi asked softly. He will, Neri whispered, more to herself than anyone else. He has to. It's our only chance. Aiden glanced at Lena, then back at the girls. We hold on. Stay close. Trust me. The freighter weaved through the final asteroid belt, sparks flying as plasma blasts grazed the hull. Ahead, the faint shimmer of a larger ship appeared Kale's vessel. It was sleek, fast, and bristling with defensive tech. Aiden's heart leapt. There, that's him. The girls clung to him as Lena guided the freighter closer. Kale's ship locked onto them, beams of light scanning for life signs. Then, with a precise maneuver, it extended a docking arm. Get ready, Kale's voice commanded. I won't ask twice. Aiden helped the girls into the docking bay, his hands steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. One by one, they were pulled aboard Kale's ship, safe for the first time since the raid. Aiden took a final glance at the freighter, then followed. Outside, the pursuit ships were still hunting, but Kale's vessel moved with blinding speed, slipping past them like a ghost. Inside Kale's command center, the girls finally let out breaths they hadn't realized they were holding. Neri, Elia, and C looked around, amazed at the advanced technology and the calm authority radiating from Kale. You're safe now, Kale said firmly, his eyes sweeping over the girls. But the danger isn't over. Not by far. Aiden nodded, feeling both relief and the weight of the battle still ahead. They had survived the first pursuit, but the truth of who these girls were, and the enemies who wanted them dead, was only just beginning to unfold. And in that moment, Aiden realized something chilling. Survival was only the first step. What came next would change everything.